You ever stop and wonder how the most advanced medicines on the planet are actually made? We hear all about these incredible breakthroughs in gene therapy or new antibody treatments, but behind every single one of those headlines, there's a factory, a super high-tech, high-stakes world of science that is, right now, going through a massive transformation. And today, we're going to go inside. And here's the thing. The world's most innovative treatments, from life-saving vaccines to revolutionary cancer drugs, they all depend on an equally innovative manufacturing process. It's this complex, often invisible world where biology meets automation, and it's the key to getting these game-changing medicines from a lab bench and into your hands faster and safer than ever before. So, come on, let's pull back the curtain and see how it all works. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at the fundamental challenge of making these modern medicines. Then, we'll walk through the two main stages of production, upstream, where the drug gets made, and downstream, where it gets purified. After that, we'll dive into the digital brain that runs the whole show, or Pharma 4.0, before we finally put all the pieces together to see the factory of the future.
All right, so what's the big deal? Why is making these drugs so incredibly hard? Well, unlike a simple chemical pill, say like aspirin, which you can cook up with predictable chemistry, modern medicines are a completely different ballgame. They're what we call biologics.
Biologics are made by living things, for living things. We're talking about these unbelievably complex molecules like monoclonal antibodies, or even entire engineered cells used for therapy. We basically have to hijack living cells and turn them into these tiny microscopic medicine factories for us, which, as you can imagine, is both incredibly powerful and just ridiculously complicated. Okay, that takes us right into the first part of the whole process, what the industry calls upstream manufacturing. The best way to think about it is like a super advanced, perfectly sterile brewery. But instead of yeast making beer, we have these genetically engineered cells making medicine. And the workhorses of this whole operation? Well, they're called CHO cells. That's Chinese hamster ovary cells, and they have been engineered to be absolute machines at producing drugs. Scientists have gotten so good at this that yields, or what they call titers, of 5 to 10 grams of drug per liter of liquid are pretty much standard now. This all happens inside these huge single-use bags called bioreactors, and the goal is simple, really. Just cram as many happy, super productive cells in there as you possibly can. And the progress here, it's just been absolutely staggering. To give you an idea of the scale, one company not long ago reported a mind-blowing yield of 51 grams per liter. That is a monumental achievement in biology and engineering. But all this success has created a brand new problem. And this success, well, it's created a really fascinating problem. On one hand, these insane production levels are fantastic, right? You get more medicine from every single batch. But on the other hand, a higher concentration of the drug also means a higher concentration of all the junk. Dead cells, waste products, other proteins. We've successfully brewed the medicine, but now you're left with this really complex, really messy, soup that you now have to clean up. And that's where downstream processing comes in. If upstream is like brewing, downstream is like trying to fish that one single perfect drug molecule out of that messy soup. And you have to do it with near perfect purity. For years, this has been the single biggest bottleneck in the entire manufacturing process. So the old way of doing this is called batch processing. Think of it as stop and go. You do a step, you stop. You move everything to a giant tank, you clean it all, then you set up for the next step. It's slow, it takes up a ton of space, and frankly, it's just super inefficient. It just can't keep up anymore. So the solution is a total shift in thinking. It's called continuous processing. Instead of stop and go, it's a non-stop, seamless flow. The cell culture moves directly from the bioreactor right into an automated purification system. This approach makes the equipment smaller, cuts down on waste, and just dramatically speeds up the whole timeline from start to finish. And listen, this isn't just some pie-in-the-sky idea. This is happening right now. The latest surveys show that 72% of manufacturers are planning to switch to continuous methods upstream, and 68% are planning to do the same for downstream purification. The entire industry is retooling for flow. But just connecting all the physical pipes and tanks? That's only half the story. To really truly run a modern biopharma factory, you need a digital brain, a central nervous system that can see, analyze, and control every little thing in real time. And that brings us to Pharma 4.0. But here's the catch. The industry, well, it's got a long way to go. Right now, only about 19% of companies have a fully integrated digital manufacturing system. Almost half are stuck in this weird hybrid world of some paper, some digital, and a wild 35% are still mostly stuck with paper and totally disconnected data.
And you can see why this is such a huge problem, right? When your different systems can't talk to each other, you can't optimize the entire process. Knowledge gets lost in the shuffle, and you're basically always looking in the rearview mirror, reacting to problems after they've already happened, instead of getting ahead of them. So, what does this look like in the real world? Let's take quality control. The old way? You take a sample, walk it down to a lab, and then just wait, sometimes for days or even weeks. The new way? You've got sensors right there, in the line. It's called Process Analytical Technology, or PAT, and they monitor quality constantly. This lets them do what's called real-time release, where the medicine is verified and released the second it's made. It just slashes production times. And then, when you sprinkle some AI on top of all that real-time data, oh, that's when things get really game-changing. AI can spot tiny little problems in the process before they become big ones, leading to, get this, a 30 to 40% drop in manufacturing errors and fixing any issues 40% faster. That's huge. Okay, so let's put it all together. We've got this continuous physical flow. We've got a super smart digital brain. What does the honest-to-goodness factory of the future actually look like? It really comes down to four main things. First, that continuous flow we talked about, which means a smaller building and less waste. Next, it runs a digital twin. This is so cool. It's basically a perfect virtual copy of the whole factory where you can test and optimize everything in a simulation before you do it for real. Then you've got AI-driven quality control that predicts the future instead of just measuring the past. And finally, robotics for the most critical steps to guarantee speed and perfect sterility. And that automation is becoming absolutely crucial because a brand new bottleneck has shown up at the very, very end of the line, the part where they fill all the vials and syringes. It's called fill finish. The massive global demand for things like vaccines and those new weight loss drugs has pushed the old systems to the breaking point. It's kicked off a whole new race to build faster, smarter, robotic filling systems. Okay, so after all that, why should you care? Why does all this high-tech factory stuff actually matter to you and me? Well, for one, a smarter factory means new medicines get developed and approved way faster. It means our supply chains for critical drugs are stronger, so we don't have shortages. And over time, all this efficiency could lead to more affordable treatments, all while making sure every single dose is safer and higher quality than ever before.
Look, the stuff we've talked about today, this isn't science fiction anymore. It's really not. These technologies are being built and rolled out as we speak. So the big question now isn't if this factory will be built. It's here. The real question is, what incredible new medicines is it going to unlock for all of us?